What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Phoenix coming to you live outside in the clouds here in Phoenix. It's a pretty nice day, but it's a little, like I said, not as much sun today, but it's all good. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope your Saturday is going as well as it can. If you like this content, consider hitting the like button. Consider subscribing to this channel. We are thugging it out. We are stacking sats. I hope you guys are doing the same. And obviously I bought that dip, I'm not gonna lie. All this FUD about the double spend with Bitcoin was pretty much unfounded, and so I just remain steadfast in my own personal treasury strategy. And I don't know, what are you guys doing? Obviously we're not financial advisors, and none of this is financial advice. Also, looked at EOS given the negativity and sentiment in the markets, and given the fact that perhaps the thought is with Dan Larimer's tweets and his departure, how much more negative sentiment could be coming for a project like EOS? My opinion is probably not so much more, and most of the market probably has already discounted or forgotten or written off EOS providing any sort of value in terms of any products, any services, pretty much nothing. And there's good reasons for that. I mean, B1 hasn't helped themselves in emphasizing enterprise EOS.io solutions over any real strategies to use the mainnet. And so there is something to be said about this type of a position that an investor would take, being really a binary, perhaps a 20x to 0x type of multiplier on whatever investment that individual has. So if in theory, allegedly, if an investor had say 20 grand in this venture today, and the realization, the ideal case, if you will, in the next 18 months is positive in terms of seeing massive interest in rollout of a product that utilizes in some way the public mainnet. Some people allegedly might say that represents a 20-25x on that initial money. And so that could represent a substantial six-figure return in terms of nominal US dollars. And there could also be some other benefits overall within the crypto space, such as finally a true custody lending type solution. That's not something that exists today. I will explain a little bit of that. Obviously, none of this is founded on concrete evidence by anything B1 is doing, so it's important for everybody to do their own research. But nevertheless, for example, if someone held a significant amount of Bitcoin, say in the six-figure level, so if an individual had $100,000 in Bitcoin but did not want to sell that, there is two things, and I think we talked about this in the video previously. Some of the OGs are evolving their mindsets. Shout out to anybody who's watching this video who's also trying to get this mindset, but I think the mindset had previously been to see something like Bitcoin moon, and I hate that word, but basically skyrocket well beyond where it is now into the six figures, right? So an individual that's maybe holding, say, 100,000 today, probably within the next 12 months, it's potentially possible for that type of an asset to go to, say, $100,000 to $200,000 per coin. Now, under that premise, that means that that individual that holds $100,000 of Bitcoin today would be around that price point in terms of their asset holdings of Bitcoin. So, what does it have to do with block.one potentially? Well, a Profi, programmable finance type offering at the base layer might just mean KYC and some custody of Bitcoin. But as it evolves, as the type of product evolves, which you might see, or what is likely you'll see, is other types of offerings for holders of Bitcoin who use that type of service with added custody and security. Meaning, if you have the $250,000, it might be possible that you get a interest paid out to your account for holding Bitcoin within that product. So you could get 5% per year, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot of money for people, but 5% a year on $250,000 is sufficient, or a good supplement in many parts of the world, many parts in the United States even, you could argue, if you live like a homie. And so that is attractive because it allows those individuals, if they're frugal and they're wise with their spending habits and practices, to actually hold a very important asset for their families over the long term, distribute that to their heirs, and not suffer any tax consequences over that period of time. Fast forward over a 5 to 10 year period, that investment then becomes maybe 1 million in terms of value. But with the 5% rate, now that amount increases to perhaps $50,000. So it is very game changing if something like that were to happen. And the difference is, today there is products that do that, but the trade-off or the drawback has historically been the dependency on the security of many of those institutions. So an institution like BlockFi, for example, which Pomp pitches often, that product is subject to security issues, potential vulnerabilities, and you can deposit, for example, your $100,000 today, or $250,000 in a year, potentially, worth $250,000 in a year, into a product like BlockFi, and get 6% back on your Bitcoin holdings. But that comes with institutional risk, getting poloed, of what OGs call, or getting Mount Goxed, right, for those of us that were back around that time. And so, yes, you could get 6% per year using BlockFi, and you could potentially thug it out using that amount. Even today, if you're an OG and you have a decent amount of Bitcoin. The problem with that, though, is, again, you're at the mercy of those institutions, basically maintaining their security, and any vulnerabilities, basically you now own those vulnerabilities. And so you're basically getting paid to assume that level of risk. And at 6%, while that is compelling from a traditional investment perspective, the risk is also higher for some hacking to occur. It becomes more of a honeypot, and the interests of a firm like BlockFi may not be aligned with yours. So that's why folks like Phoenix, folks like myself, I don't necessarily have an interest in that type of a product yet, but something like, if block.one did this the right way and had custodian level insurance and some level of blockchain usage, maybe with EOS, to maybe add some additional security to those holdings, maybe a multi-sig with myself and with the block.one custodian, and maybe a third firm, so you have like 3 levels of security. I'm not saying that a lot of OGs would put everything in there, but it does become a little bit more compelling than what we have today. So that could be a game changer, guys, in terms of a potential product. And that's why, for someone like myself, with the negative sentiment I've seen, looking at taking a trading position, not talking about the OG EOS position, that pretty much is, for many people, I think that remains untouched. But we're talking about a 12 to 24 month um, horizon. I mean, my horizons are, I've told friends around here, a 5 to 10 year type move. But I mean, even over a 12 to 24 month period, product launch like this that benefits the entire crypto space gets around the speed issues. Because one of the other things is, so I mentioned two things already as to why something like that Profi product by B1 could be valuable. One, it's valuable to the EOS community if it has an element of usage on the EOS public mainnet. But that's also important for those holders because it adds security to their custodianship, right? That's something BlockFi doesn't have. The second thing is it gives you a dividend. So now it gives another financial feature to Bitcoin that's not, I think, even in the Bitcoin space, seen right now as viable, even with products like BlockFi, just because of those vulnerabilities. And third, it potentially allows for higher or improved performance on exits on and off Bitcoin. So if you guys have been in the space for a long time, one of the things you'll note is often, not always, when Bitcoin has its moves rocketing up. Okay, we're talking about very high moves, not average type moves, but maybe a 15% move, maybe even a 30% move. Okay, those types of moves where people want to get an entry in or exit out. Those are the types of moves where most of these servers like Polo and Coinbase, take it from an OG, try to sell your coins during that time. What you're going to get is a server, or try to buy coins during that time. And what you're going to get is server issues, 404 type related status errors on those sites because of the just the interest, right? It becomes sort of like denial of service in some ways, just because of the hits to that system. And if block.one was able to somehow account for that, leveraging the blockchain to ensure performance and settlements, okay, selling and buying these assets, that is a game changer because it allows traders to realize those gains when they occur. So that is your third benefit, guys. And your fourth benefit for Profi, again, which makes potentially EOS somewhat compelling depending if B1 does this, and again, none of this is investment advice, is the auditability. And so again, many OGs will tell you there's been a lot of times in the Bitcoin space where you've seen these moves and you've seen these exchanges claim they have certain assets, when in fact, in reality, guys, my opinion about it is, and we'll find out soon, but a lot of these exchanges don't have jack shit. And so they're making claims on Bitcoin, or they're telling users that they have funds of these, they have Bitcoin for these accounts that are supposed to have Bitcoin, but they're probably likely holding they're probably using like a leverage type scheme where they only have a certain percentage of those widely available, and they may be lending out the other assets unbeknownst to those users, or they may even be using some type of a scheme where they operate on a 3-to-1 or 5-to-1 ratio. And what that means, guys, is for every $5 the exchange claims they have, they may only have $1 of Bitcoin. So for every $5 of Bitcoin or every $4 of Bitcoin in exchange claims they have, they may actually, in fact, only have $1 worth of Bitcoin. And unfortunately, what's going to tip the scales in a negative way is when you start to see, in my opinion, the likes of a Profi type product emerge that gives some type of a profit or some type of a return for people who are willing to lend their assets. Right now you don't have that, so basically there's not really a way for people to realize there's an issue, because a server or a platform can just claim that they have someone's Bitcoin. And so basically, because there's no real there's no other alternative for most of those people to move their assets towards. They don't ever realize there's a problem because most of them aren't self-custodying. But if you had a solution like block.one might be delivering, in which they have a true proof of custodianship and they're willing to pay people some type of an interest for those deposits, and it's auditable, and it comes with a regulatory framework, now you're going to see a major pressure on those exchanges that are operating in a shady fashion to basically get a short squeeze, because they're going to have to come up with that Bitcoin to give those users, and so that the users can move from Coinbase to this Profi platform. And so that's a huge benefit to the entire crypto space if that happens. The only issue I do see with it is the fact that if they're the only ones doing something like that, then that ultimately becomes a honeypot. So it's going to be really interesting, guys, to see what that Profi is. But that may be worth many of the users who watch this channel to study and take a look at, and just see, just evaluate it from that perspective. Your boy Phoenix, just keeping it 100 here. I mean, again, haven't touched that OG stack, but just feel like this next 12 months to 24 months is kind of a make or break kind of situation for EOS. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me to take on that trading, maybe a trading position in some way that's somewhat strategic, and that allows for more of a risk-reward type of a position. And the other observation to note is that a lot of other assets that really have nothing like this have moved up quite substantially. Some of that level, maybe even like 3x to 5x for some of these projects emerging up into that market cap space. And we really haven't seen that with EOS. In fact, EOS has stayed relatively flat. And so, now that a lot of these details are starting to emerge, and, even though EOS as a community doesn't hold the tokens, hold those BTC tokens, we've seen the likes of Arca make some arguments to the contrary, in which they're looking to put more pressure on the likes of B1 to deliver some improvements to the network overall. And the changes in the regulatory space with Gensler may coincide with that. So B1 just walking away and saying, we've done our job in delivering EOS.io software is probably not going to be sufficient. And it seems like a lot of institutional holders of EOS that still remain are willing to attack that honeypot if B1 doesn't get their act together. So I think the Profi product, coupled with this newfound strategy by the likes of Arca, I'd recommend everybody check out that podcast. I'll try to link it in the video below this one if you want to listen to that. But basically calling out B1 for some bullshit, really, because B1's trying to act like they're pretty much in the clear in terms of delivering what they said they were going to deliver in the white paper. And there are certain aspects, even within that original EOS.io or EOS white paper, that still haven't been delivered. So from that perspective, the job isn't really done until those features are offered. So I think there is some validity to what ARC is saying after thinking about it a little bit more. At first, I was a little more skeptical on it, but as I started to think through and review the original white paper and compare that to where we're at right now as a community and as a network, there's definitely some holes that I think B1 is still on the hook for. So whether they deliver or not, or start to leverage the network for their products and eat their own dog food, is a separate matter. I will be doing a second video on this, but this first video is just about that Profi potential product, and just the sentiment overall with EOS, and why maybe even some OGs are taking a second look at EOS in addition to their OG stack, looking at trading positions. So that's just something I thought I'd share. I hope you guys are doing well. Check out the second part of today's video and hit that like button and subscribe. This is EOS signing off. Actually, this is Phoenix signing off, and hope you guys are doing well. Peace.